Hello everyone out there on YouTube. Sorry, I've been away for quite some time. I had a lot going on the last few weeks. I went to Vegas like a couple of weeks ago, and I was pretty hungover for most of it, so I wasn't able to actually do anything then. But I'm back with the video. I'm gonna try to make another one this week too, because I've been so far gone. It's been like forever. But today I wanted to talk about mental health in the black community. So if you've seen my suicide video, like don't do it. Um, Coming from me, it was very difficult for me to, even now it's still difficult for me to talk about that. It happened 10 years ago, but every time I talk about it, it takes me back to that moment, and I tear up, and I can't help it because there was so much pain and misery that was there when that happened, and every time I think about it, I start like tearing up a little bit. And so, when that happened, it was depression. And when that happened, like obviously severe depression. And when that happened, I felt like I couldn't confide in anyone. And I feel like that's how a lot of people feel anyway, but for black people, it may be a little bit different. So I felt like I couldn't confide in anyone. Like I had, I had my mom, like my parents were there, but I felt like I couldn't talk to them because I felt like I was going to be, what's the word? Not chastised, not judged either, but there's a certain kind of stigma that's associated with any kind of mental health issue, anyway. But let's see if this works. Hold on. No, it's not gonna work. Hold on. So there's a certain kind of stigma that's associated with anything, like any kind of depression or mental health, especially in the black community, just from what I've noticed, it seems in the black community, it's very much like you have to be strong, because of all the years that you were shown as, this weak person, this weak individual who was emasculated and called boy over and over and told, so many times that, you ain't shit, you're never gonna be shit, and you can only do, you're not shit, So like, there's a lot of things that stem from. There's a lot that holds black people back when it comes to that. So, take for example, I guess what I was talking about before I got sidetracked. Take for example me. I was very much. I very much did not want to talk to anyone about it because I felt that if I was, how do I say it? I felt like people would look down on me, for taking this thing called life and just throwing it away, like, and a lot of people don't really think about it like that, but for me, I was very nervous. I was very nervous, and I was at the time that it happened, I was very afraid too, I was very much like I didn't have anyone to talk to. And I felt like if I went to other black people, it would be the same thing. Like no one would talk to me. And not only that, not only would no one talk to me, they would be like, that makes, like you're weak, you're, whatever, that makes no sense. But I was reading some stuff about like mental health in the black community. And I found some interesting statistics. There was a study done in 2013 by Minority Research Group. I have to find it again, but it was saying that 20% of African Americans are more likely to be categorized as severely as depressed. And there are a lot of reasons that were given. A lot of it has to deal with like socioeconomic classes. A lot of it has to do with economics, like socioeconomic classes, income, where you fit in the in the lines of society, and for most black people it tends to be like, I don't know, what would you say, like white. I'm gonna go based on economics. So Asian Americans make more on average than white people. So it's Asian, white, Hispanics. I guess Native American then black. Would you say that? Yeah. So like there are all sorts of studies that are saying that more people who are like, the more that you're impoverished as far as like being like low, like poverty, or not having the money to do things, or to even survive, that's enough to lead people into depression. And they get that from because blacks on average don't have a lot of wealth and don't make a lot of wealth, you know what I mean? And so they say that blacks are, there's another study done also in 2013 that was saying that blacks are more they do not, most of the time they do not commit suicide, but or like they don't attempt suicide, but they're more likely to commit suicide than whites. So it's just stuff like that. And it's funny, like all this stuff, I'm getting to this point, sorry. I'm just like going like all this back and forth shit. But really, it's like, I say all that to say that black people, there's such a stigma in the black community when it comes to mental health, that a lot of people tend to either rub it off or just choose to ignore it altogether. So like for my families and other people's families, because I have friends too, it's not just my family but other families too, they tend to see like any kind of counseling or any kind of there we go. They tend to see any kind of counseling or anything, remotely relating to discussing your problems or talking about what's mentally affecting you, as they mainly see that as, what would you say, weak-minded. So they either think that you're just trying to get attention, or they brush it off altogether, and even though, and obviously that's not how it should be, but a lot of families tend to think like that. A lot of families don't want to talk about what's mentally bothering them. A lot of black families don't want to talk about why they feel the way that they feel, because that's white people shit. And I'm laughing, but it's like the truth. A lot of people say, well, that's something white people would do. Why do you want to go talk to a shrink, or why do you want to go talk to someone? If it weren't for me talking to a lot of other things, but if it weren't for me going to a psychologist or a therapist every week for like 2 years or so, I would have been gone. Like I would have been dead. Like I would not be making this video right now. Like I would have seriously, I would have died a long time ago, So I just say all that to say, like, there's such a stigma in the black community when it comes to mental health. A lot of black people don't want to talk about what's affecting them, like mentally. They don't want to talk about what's going on in their lives. They don't want to talk about they don't want to talk. A lot of times, and you'll notice it, that, and it's not, in this regard, it's not just black people, but you'll notice that a lot of people, when they're dealing with mental health issues, they tend to find another outlet for it. Sometimes it's a negative outlet. Sometimes you'll see people who are like drinking a ton, Sometimes you'll see people who bask in other things to feel like they can numb the pain, You know what I mean? Like, someone's in pain, they cut themselves. You don't hear about a lot of black people cutting themselves because they don't talk about that stuff. I know a shit ton of black people who cut themselves, but people won't talk about that because it's a stigma. You know what I mean? And everything in the black community is about a stigma. Everything about in the black community is about you're too weak. You can't talk about this stuff because you're too weak, and you don't want people to see you as, you know, this weak-minded person. It's not weak when you need to, like, your mental health is not, that's not weak. If anything, your mental health is what makes you stronger to keep going. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Like, don't get me started, because I mean, I could, but like I said, if you're struggling with something like that, just some kind of mental health issue or something, talk to someone. If it's within something that you can talk to someone about, like maybe depression or something. If it's bipolar, still talk to. It doesn't matter what it is. Talk to someone about it. You know. If I didn't talk to people, I wouldn't be here, and that's just the honest truth. If I didn't have friends, I would be dead because from suicide. So yeah, if you guys have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Yeah, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, because it's an important topic, and if you're dealing with something, let me know. My Twitter page is on YouTube, so if you want to, you could talk to me on there too. I don't mind if you're going through an issue or some kind of something. I don't mind talking to you about it because I've been there. I know how it is. Feel free to hit me up, okay? Otherwise, let me know what your thoughts are below. It's a really touchy subject, mental health in the black community is, but it's worth it, and I feel like more black people need to talk about it. Otherwise, the state of our group of people is only going to suffer, you know. So, talk to you guys later, okay?